It was a foreign concept. To me, it wasn't a foreign concept as president because I saw it everywhere I went. And that's what Little League Baseball is. It's a voluntary association where people come together to try to improve the communities in which they live and the lives of the young citizens that play on the teams. I love baseball a lot. I learned to love baseball as a catcher on the Midland Cubs Little League team. I also learned that I would never be a major league player when the ball started to move. I would tell people that I peaked as a Little League player. But peaking as a Little League player did not diminish my love for the game. What I love about Little League Baseball is it teaches young folks how to serve something greater than themselves. It teaches people the concept of team, that when one does well, all do well, and that it requires team play to win. I love the idea of teaching youngsters how to be a gracious winner and a decent loser. I'm not saying it teaches a youngster how to accept, how to want to lose. I'm saying it teaches a youngster how to accept the fact that you don't always win in life. I love the idea of Little League Baseball strengthening families. You said that on that film, and I thank ESPN for the film, but what I meant was, if you ever go to a Little League game, you see a lot of family activity. You see moms, I certainly saw mine. I'm not saying she heckled the umpires a lot, but I am saying she was there every game. It meant a lot to me then, and when I look back at my life, it means a lot to me now to know that my family was at the games, was by my side. That's what Little League Baseball means to me, and I thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for what you're doing to strengthen America, for what you do in the communities, and for the example you set for our children. People often ask me, did you have some amazing moments? I did. I want to share two of them with you. One, and one of them has to do with volunteering. One of them was one of the lessons I learned from Abraham Lincoln, as I told you, was he assiduously courted the military. I felt a unbelievable responsibility, particularly to meet with the families of the fallen. It was hard. I'm a crier, and obviously I met a lot of folks who wanted to cry. But 99% of the time, I came out of the meetings a better person, with a greater appreciation of our country. I'm in Reno, Nevada. I'm honoring the life of a lieutenant Marine who lost his life in Anbar province. His mom was there. We wept. Orthopedic surgeon Krisoff was there. Dr. Krisoff is dead. His brother Austin. Dr. Krisoff, after I listened to stories and they told me all about their son, took me aside. And he said, Mr. President, I want to volunteer in the United States military in honor of my son. Took me a little bit of a surprise because Krisoff looked about my age. I was 60 at the time. I said, well, doctor, how old are you? He said 60. I didn't tell him he was a little too old for the military, but I said I'd look into it. I got back to Washington, called General Pete Pace. He was chairman of the Joint Chiefs, by the way, the only United States Marine ever to have been chairman of the Joint Chiefs. He said, Pete, you're not going to believe this. I met Dr. Krisoff, 60-year-old orthopedic surgeon who wants to serve in the military, and had told me, by the way, that the president can grant an exception. skill set exception. So would you look into it? He calls me about 3 weeks later. He says, Christoph's headed to the United States Navy. 4 weeks after I got out of the United States military, Dr. Bill Christoph volunteered, 60-year-old orthopedic surgeon, volunteered in Baghdad, Iraq, in honor of his son, provide healing and hope. He came after, got out 1 year later, and 2 weeks from now, is headed into Afghanistan. Our country is an amazing country. Amazing country for people willing to volunteer to make our communities a better place. I want to end with one story. I spent a lot. I believe in the admonition, too much is given, much is required. And I think we ought to live our life that way. It's actually what you're doing. You may not view the call the same way I do, but that's what you're doing. You've been given a lot as an American, and you're giving back to your communities, and I thank you for that. I took it on a larger scale as well, and I believe that when we saw HIV/AIDS suffering in the continent of Africa, we ought to do something about it. So I thought America was so generous, so big of heart, that our nation would be better off if we help deal with the scourge of HIV/AIDS in some of the poorest nations around the world. So Laura and I are in Rwanda, and one of the innovative aspects of this desire to help was we included faith-based programs. People have heard it called a love neighbor. I thought that would be useful to put them to work. If somebody shows up because they want to love a neighbor just like they'd like to be loved themselves, it seems like that's the kind of person you want on the front lines of strengthening your communities and helping people who've got disease. This particular program was run by a faith-based program, and actually they were teaching abstinence to young Rwandan girls. It's a pretty tough issue in Washington, abstinence. My view was it works all the time. Just a really effective strategy. But nevertheless, it was obviously controversial. And but they're teaching these young girls this because one of the great purveyor of AIDS is that older men hitting on young girls. And so this faith-based program was at least giving the girls some sense of how to fight off these predators. There were 50 junior high kids watching me and Laura and watching the presentation, many of whom had lost both parents because of HIV/AIDS. I happened to walk by the group, and I don't know, for whatever reason, I said, God is good. And in unison, without hesitating, all 50 said, all the time. I couldn't believe it. I said, God is good. So I tried it one more time. I said, God is good. And the response was all the time. So I got back to Washington, D.C. And I called my team together. And I said, I want you to hear the story. I told them the story I just told you. And I said, if 50 kids, many of whom had lost both mom and dad to HIV/AIDS, can say all the time, surely those of us who are fortunate enough to live in the greatest country ever, the United States, when somebody says God is good, we can say all the time, thank you very much and God bless you.